You know, when I look at this upcoming weekend for the playoffs and everything, one of the things I've noticed ever since this weekend ended, and that's pretty much how I have it all designed and everything. It's on my fridge here. But the way I'm pretty much hearing a lot of people talking about it, it's like a lot of people feel that their teams are pretty much locked in to win. When it comes to getting to the conference championship. And I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that, their teams aren't favored, to potentially win, the divisional round matchups they're in. But I think what we have to remember is despite the fact that we want our teams to win, like me, of course, I want the 49ers to win and go all the way, just like the rest of my family does. And that's, that's shooting straight with you on that. We have to also remember that there's a lot of teams in these playoffs that want it just as bad, if not more. I mean, when you look at what Green Bay did to Dallas, a lot of people might say, well, the 49ers will be able to do what Dallas could not, defensively, when it comes to Green Bay. And that might be true, but if Green Bay is determined and will want it enough, they will give, my 49ers the fight of their life. There is no doubt about that. The same, the same with Tampa Bay going into Detroit. Detroit wants to make history this year by getting to the Super Bowl for the very first time in franchise history. And Tampa Bay wants to make history by getting back there once again. They want to prove that they can be world champions again post Tom Brady. And then you look on the AFC side of things, you have Baltimore, one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now, hosting the Houston Texans. And the Texans, especially under the coaching of the former defensive coach of the 49ers, under his coaching, and they got this young quarterback in C.J. Stroud, they are definitely showing that they are not to be, underestimated as well. They're showing they are not to be underestimated as well. And going into Baltimore, there's no doubt they're going to give Baltimore a run for their money. There's no doubt about that. I mean, yeah, both the 49ers and the Ravens may have had extra time to rest up, but that sometimes can be an advantage and a disadvantage. An advantage is basically the fact that you're healing up all your players, you're resting up, you have enough time to study tape and, study video and all that to see exactly potentially who your opponents are going to be. And then when you find out, you can focus on that team. And also the advantage is not only do you have more time to rest, but your opponent has less, time to rest. They have less time to rest when it comes to that kind of a matchup. But again, it's one of those situations that despite all that, you cannot underestimate any team. And Baltimore cannot underestimate, Houston despite the rest that they got. Because Houston has the momentum of, okay, this is our time. This is our time and we want to make it happen. The same with Buffalo and Kansas City. Buffalo wants to finally get back to the Super Bowl after 30 plus years, or almost 30 plus years. And Kansas City wants to continue their dynasty, or their dynasty basically. Basically, they want to continue building it. They want to continue building that dynasty, that they're doing right now, and they need to get back to the Super Bowl to make that happen. So overall, when I look at the divisional rounds and potentially whatever kind of conference championships we're going to get, there's no doubt, like I said in the first video, this is going to be probably the hardest hitting and most difficult, NFL playoffs I think anybody has ever seen. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be the most hardest and difficult NFL playoffs anybody has ever seen, period. And I'm not just saying that because, of what I saw, Green Bay do, what I saw Houston do and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because of the fact that you could see how hungry even these wild card teams are. Now, I know one thing some people might look at as well is how do we know these playoffs won't be fixed? Because if there's anything that comes along with any kind of major league sports playoff season, is wondering whether or not playoffs are fixed for certain teams to get in, and thus go all the way. And I'm sure a lot of Dallas fans have conspiracy hats on, have conspiracy hats on right now, wondering how in the world did, Green Bay do what they did? How did they how were they able to, on Dallas's own home turf, do what they did? And basically, I wouldn't necessarily say blow them out, but essentially caused Dallas to have to really scratch harder than they wanted to scratch to try to at least make it closer than it was originally. And a lot of conspiracy theorists, like I said, a lot of conspiracy theorists, in that fan base of the Cowboys, even Cowboy fans out here, will believe that something was up. Like either somebody got a hold of the playbook and everything from Green Bay. Somebody from Green Bay got a hold of the playbook, or one of the officials on the sidelines, because they have officials on the sidelines, was in contact with the Green Bay side and let them know. And I'm not saying that's something I believe, but I guarantee you that's what others might believe. That's what others might believe. So obviously there's going to be discussions, here and there about, okay, which games are going to be fixed, by these officials and all that. And all I can say is if I'm the officials and I saw what Green Bay did to Dallas, and I'm hearing, a lot of conspiracies and speculations and all that, if I'm the officials of any of these games, I have to be careful of how I make these calls. I got to be careful of how I flag certain opponents, or certain teams and everything for what they do. I got to be careful about my decision. Because if I do something that might, cost another team, the game, and it's not, and, later on it gets looked at as not something that should have been called, that's going to be on me and my crew. That's going to be on me and my crew. And I'm going to have to do whatever it takes to correct that. I'm going to either have to come out and say, look, I thought it was, I made a mistake, and that was my fault. I'm basically, long story short, to avoid that, I got to be careful. I got to be careful of how I call the game, and how, and again, and basically pay attention to what really needs to be flagged and what doesn't. So there's no doubt that the divisional rounds are going to have, a lot of eyes put on them, this week. There's going to have a lot of eyes put on them this week. Another thing, too, that a lot of people, and even myself, I'll admit it, have been guilty about is looking at how certain players are hyped up and certain words are being spewed about. Like, you hear the word script a lot, right? And that basically, when you hear people like the commentators or the players or analysis or former players and all that coming out and saying, oh, the script is obviously written perfectly here and script this, script that, that's going to get people thinking like, okay, wait a minute. Are they saying that the playoffs are scripted? Like they already know who's going to go all the way? Fans will think that. And if that's the case, they're going to be like, then why am I going to watch the playoffs? If it's already scripted of who goes all the way, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to them. So you're going to have fans here, looking at, that potentially, very closely, like, okay, why did this happen and that happen? Was this scripted? Was, this team told to lose to this team but keep it close? Or was this team told to lose to this team but look dominant at first and then, fall apart at the end? People will look at that in case those kind of things happen and start thinking, I wonder if that was, I wonder if it was scripted that way and they were told to do that. You know? Excuse me. People will think that. They will take that into consideration. You know, especially when it comes to divisional and conference championships. And then, of course, you got, like I said, the hyping up of certain players. And a lot of people will pay attention to that and go like, well, why are they pumping up and hyping up this player? It doesn't make sense. Like, you know, they were talking highly about Jordan Love on the Green Bay side or C.J. Stroud on the Texans side. And, you know, Jeff Goff or Joe, what's his name? Jeff Goff or something on the Detroit side. You know, people look at that and they're like, why are they speaking very highly of them? You know, they're speaking more highly of them than Patrick Mahomes, you know, and such. Or even potentially opponents they're going up against, like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, or Brock Purdy and the 49ers, and so on, and Josh Allen and the Bills. You know, why are they talking them up so much? And a lot of people will take that into consideration and be like, could it be that, you know, things have been, you know, scripted to the point that these are the guys that are going to be in the conference championships? You know? It's those kind of things that when you hear the commentators, the play-by-play announcers doing that, you know, and along with the analysis people, it's like, okay, why are they hyping them up so much, more so than anybody else? And, you know, and that's another thing that they will pay attention to. Like, is this a sign? Like, are we basically being told, yeah, this guy and his team are going to go all the way, you know, whether you like it or not? Is that what's going to, you know, is that something that, you know, will be a clue for people to pay attention to? Because I know for, you know, a fact that there have been several occasions that when a certain quarterback gets, you know, a certain quarterback or wide receiver gets talked up a lot, along with their team, when they get talked up a lot, it always feels like, and evidently, evidence shows that team ends up winning. You know, it's almost like, could it be they're telling us this is what's going to happen, whether we want it to or not? And that's a possibility. We don't know. You know, that's a possibility. We don't know. But we'll have to just wait and see what happens this weekend. You know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens this weekend. Because, again, you cannot take any teams, you know, lightly. Again, I'm a 49er fan. There is no doubt. I am a 49er fan. In fact, if this right here, my grandpa's helmet, is any indication of that. Right there, my grandpa's helmet, if that's any indication, if you will, that I am a 49ers fan, along with everything else, I don't know what is. You know, if this little Christmas decoration that we still have out is any indication that me and my family are 49er fans, I don't know what is. And as much as we want them to win, and we pray and hope they will, and we know they will, we know it's also not going to be easy. We know it's not going to be without a fight. We already feel that. But history has shown, especially this past season, that when the 49ers get a break and they get their players healed up, you know, just enough, that the following week they can be, you know, they can basically be, you know, very difficult to beat. You know, they can be. They will come out guns a-blazing, especially at home. And the other advantage I think a lot of people have to look at is Green Bay was in a dome stadium. You know, they weren't in an open air stadium like what they're used to having at Lambeau Field. Here, Levi Stadium's an open air stadium, and it's going to be louder. It's going to be very loud. You know, how that has an effect is up to how the game is played. You know, and the same goes for, let's say, the Texans. They're going into Baltimore. That's an open air stadium, and that's going to be loud. Kansas City, they're used to open air stadium. They're going into Buffalo. You know, and they got weather situations there. You got Tampa Bay going into Ford Field, which is designed, from what I can tell, to feel like it's an open air stadium, but it's not. You know, so it's, again, you know, this weekend is going to be very interesting, And I know as much as we have any fans want our teams to win, and we should hope for that and pray for that. You know, there's no doubt. We should hope and pray for that. As much as we want our teams to win, we also have to be realist of the fact that, you know, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And we also got to be prepared for anybody online or anybody we're, you know, watching the game alongside with. We got to be prepared for those people coming up with their conspiracy theories and all that as to why this happened, why that happened. We got to be ready for when they, talk about, why they, for when they ask why are they hyping up this player and why are they saying this word, and everything. Because, they might be, onto something, or they might just feel like, hey, this is, something doesn't feel right here. Something doesn't feel right. And, it's just going to be an interesting divisional playoff round and going into the conference championships. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. What do you think it's going to be like this weekend? And until then, I will talk to you all later.